Okay, we're quiet, please. So today we're going to do adding real numbers. Right? Adding. What does it mean to add real numbers? And I know in most cases that this is. Okay, quiet, please. For most of you, you don't need practice doing this, but I'll still give it a day. Like I say, a lot of what we do, Connor. Okay, if you interrupt me, then you lost your classwork credit. That's the way it works. Okay? So again, now we are supposed to know now, be a little bit comfortable with what are integers and rational numbers. And now we're going to do operations with them. And we practice it. I mean, even though it seems kind of basic because it's all about, numbers that we've been dealing with forever, but eventually we're trying to do these things with, algebraic expressions. Remember, that's what algebra is. We're using these symbols and then trying to use these operations we used to use with numbers with those symbols. So, they take in order, they're going to do addition, subtraction, multiplication. Then they do distributive property, which I know you've seen before. And then they do division. And then that's basically how this whole unit will be on that. But it will include decimals and it will include fractions, and some of this will not be with a calculator. So adding real numbers. To get down to basics, we add on a number line. And the way we do it is we plot the first number wherever it goes, and then we use the second number to go left or right from the first number. Plus means on a number line, plus is always to the right, and minus means go to the left. Just a second. Sorry, I forgot. I had a second there. So these are examples, and if you notice these nice graphics, last year when I was doing this, I was able to cut them out of our textbook because we had the digital version of the textbook, but we don't have that anymore. So I took them out of my presentation from last year. But if we're going to follow their procedures here, right? -3 plus 6 means start at -3. That was the first number. And then since it's a plus 6, we go to the right 6. And you can count it from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the answer is 3. -4 plus -5, right? So we start at -4. And since it says -5 or plus a negative, we're going to have to go to the left 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the answer is -9. I know it's baby stuff, but right. So use the number line to find those sums. Okay. You could draw yourself one. Okay, so let's add in the number line. Where did I go first for number 1? 7. No. I start at the positive 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and the -2 is telling me to go 2 to the left. So the answer is 5. Right? The next one, start at 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I have to go -11. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And what number is that? -3. Look, I had a kid in my Algebra 2 class, we just took a test, who in the same problem, like 3 times, said that 12 minus 3 is 8.
Was it Brandon?
No, and the kid, that was like the only mistake on the whole test. She got an A, a solid A, but still made silly arithmetic mistakes. And we can all make silly arithmetic mistakes. But okay, how about -8 plus 4? So where am I going to plot the first point if it starts at -8? I got to go to the left, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's my -8, so I plot a point. And then I go 4, which direction? To the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the answer is -4. Okay, and the last one, where do I start? -1 is 1 to the left, and then which way do I go from there? Go left, 2, 3, 4, and that makes it -5. Okay, so a positive plus a positive is always
Positive.
a negative plus a negative is always a negative. What about if it's a positive plus a negative?
Depends if the positive is bigger than negative.
Yeah, and in math terms, in terms of what we learned in the last lesson, is which one has the greater absolute value. Whichever one has the greater absolute value, that's the sign that you're going to use. So the rules of addition, which you copied, that was the extra credit homework, right? Is that when you're adding numbers of the same sign, then add their absolute values and use the same sign. Put an S in there. When you're adding numbers of opposite signs, you actually subtract the larger absolute value minus the smaller, and then use the sign of the larger absolute value. So let's try that. Find the sum. And again, I just copied this from the book. So the first one, you've got two negative numbers. So according to the rules of addition, we should add their absolute values, and then what will the sign of their sum be? Since they're both negative, the sum will be negative. Remember, we're not multiplying here, right? We're going to get to that in a couple lessons. So they actually went through this process, which we won't do most of the time when we're doing this kind of math. But so they took the absolute value of both. They got 5.3 and 4.9. They added them up, 10.2, and then they kept the sign of negative. Okay, and the next one, 19.3 plus negative 12.2. Which one has a bigger absolute value? 19.3. So the sign of the sum is going to be positive because 19.3 was positive. So here they take the absolute value of 19.3 minus the absolute value of 12.2, negative 12.2, and they get the 7.1. Okay, so you try to find the sums. And actually, you know, as we're doing this, I've seen some mistakes. If you add a negative plus a negative, what do you expect to get? A negative, right? Remember, when we did it on the number line, that meant you started to the left of 0, and you went further to the left of 0. So it's definitely going to be a negative. So according to the rules of addition, we should add the absolute value of these numbers, meaning just add the positive numbers, and then the sign will be negative. So how do you add 6.7 and 0.6? Right? 7 plus 6, 13. 7.3, and then the answer should be negative. What about the second one? Is the answer going to be negative or positive? Negative, because 16.2 has a greater absolute value, and it's a negative number. So what the rules of addition said, we should do what? Subtract, right? Subtract the bigger minus the smaller. Right? Okay, what is that? 2 minus 1? 1. Decimal point. 6 minus 0? 6. And then is the sign going to be positive or negative? It's going to be negative, right? Because this is negative, it's negative. Okay, what about the last one? Same thing, right? The last one, the bigger of the two, is a negative number. So we need to subtract 13.1 minus 8.7. 11 minus 7? 4. Remember, if you're going to do this, usually we would like borrow a 1, like that. 12 minus 8? 4. And the sign we said is negative because that's the bigger of the two. Okay, what about fractions? So, you know, this book, a lot of their problems when they deal with fractions, they have like these mixed numbers, right? It's like 4 and 1/5. Most of the time we don't. Most of the time we have like improper fractions where the numerator is bigger than the denominator. How do I change a 4 1/5 into an improper fraction? Yeah.
Would you multiply the numerator is the wrong number, right?
Numerator is the top number.
Oh. Would you multiply the denominator by the whole number?
Okay, so 5 times 4 is 20. Then what? Plus 1. Yeah, so this is actually 21/5. Right? 5 times 4 plus 1. Okay, well, how about the second one? Turn that into halves. 2 times 9 plus 1. What is it? So it's going to be negative 19 halves. Okay. Now, how do you add fractions if they don't have the same denominator? Okay, you have to find a least common denominator. What's the smallest number that both 5 and 2 divide into? 10, okay? So how do I change this? Like 21/5, what am I going to multiply it by? So I have a denominator of 10. 2 over 2, right? Now, what does 2 over 2 equal? 1. And what is 1 times anything? The same thing, right? So we're not changing the value of anything here. We're just changing what it looks like. Okay, what will we multiply negative 19 halves by? 5 over 5, right? 5 over 5. So go back to blue. Boom, right there. So this is actually 42 over 10 plus negative 19 times 5. How do I do 5 times 19? Right, that's 45 and 95. So this is negative 95 over 10. Okay, now which has got the bigger absolute value? The negative 95 over 10 is the bigger. So the sum is going to be what sign? Negative. So we should do 95 minus 42. What is 95 minus 42? 53. So this is negative 53 over 10. So there are problems where you got to find the common denominator in the homework. Okay. Then we get to the properties of addition. Right? How many have seen these before? So, I mean, properties are important that we use them correctly. It's less important that you remember the name, although you'll be tested on that at the end of the year for sure. That's part of the SOLs. But it's still, do you know that 2 plus 3 equals 3 plus 2? You know, you're not confused if somebody throws the two numbers at you in a different order. You're okay with it because it's addition, right? So that's a property. It's not a property for every operation. We'll learn later that it's a property of multiplication, but it's not a property of subtraction, and it's not a property of division. So I mean, these are only for certain properties. So how do you remember commutative property? A plus B equals B plus A means what's not important? What's not important when you're adding numbers? The order, right? The order doesn't matter. How about associative property? A in parentheses A plus B plus C equals A plus parentheses B plus C. What did they just change? The parentheses changed, right? So what doesn't matter when you're using associative property? I always just say grouping. The grouping doesn't matter. If all you're doing is adding, it doesn't matter. Okay, A plus 0 equals 0 plus A. That's commutative property. But A plus 0 equals A. If you add 0 to anything, what do you get? The same thing, right? And so 0 is, they call the additive identity element. And what about if A plus negative A equals 0? That's called the inverse. Negative A, what is negative A? In terms of the last lesson, what is negative A? The opposite of A. Yeah. When they use that the negative symbol in front, are basically saying if you add a number and its opposite, you get 0. Right? Okay. So let's see which properties are these above here. Okay. Actually, this one is already worked out. So the first one is associative, because they just changed the grouping. The second one, because you're adding a number and it's opposite. And the third one, they're changing the order. So I think the next one is actually, you got to do it. So you tell me those three properties. That's your you try. What's the first property? Okay, that's this one, right? That's inverse. What's the second one? It looks like identity. If you add 0 to anything, you get the same thing. And what did they change on the third one? Commutative is just order. So it'd be nice if we memorize those names to go with the properties as we use them. You know, we'll say that a lot, you know, like, hey, what property says you can do that? But usually at the end of the year, we're still a lot of not very clear on that. There's not many properties questions on the SOL. So, okay, so here's this table shows the annual profits for 2 piano manufacturers. Which manufacturer had the greater total profit for the 3 years? So what do you notice for those three? The first year is negative. Actually, they lost money. So how can we add up the three numbers for both columns? What would you do first? Can we just add them straight up? And you can't, right? Because 2 of them are positive and 1 of them is negative. So the first thing we should do is either, you could like take the first 2 and add those, which would mean subtracting because one's positive, one's negative, and then add the third one. Or, you know what I would probably do is, why don't we add the 2 that are positive? Because we can just do that pretty simply, right? A positive plus a positive is a positive. What is 8.7 plus 6.8? 7 plus 8. Come on, these are first grade math facts. 7 plus 8. 15, right? 1 plus 8 plus 6. 15. Okay, that's the 2 positives. Okay, now, which has the bigger absolute value, 15.5 or negative 5.8? So then we should subtract 5.8. And what do we get? 15 minus 8. 7. 14 minus 5. 9. So this guy had a total profit for the 3 years was $9.7 million. That's pretty good. Okay, let's do the same thing over here. Let's add up the 2 positive numbers first. Right? What's 7.9 and 8.2? Okay, it should be 9 plus 2 is 11. 16. Okay, now which has a greater absolute value, the 16.1 or the negative 6.5? The 16.1. So we're going to subtract 6.5. 11 minus 5 is 6. 15 minus 6 is 9. So which had a better profit for the 3 years? Looks like manufacturer A. Okay. So that's it. Okay, so there's your homework. You should be working on your homework now. You got like 15 minutes. You can get it done.